Welcome to Gaga Knits. My name's Anita and I live in South Wales in the UK, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Anita Bulb, and show notes for this episode can be found in the description box below. I hope you're all well and have had a good couple of weeks since I podcast last. I have got a few finished objects for you this week. So I'm wearing my first one, which I did show last time, my Anouk cardigan, but I've completely finished it now as I've put the buttons on the sleeves and on the front. I've blocked it and I've sewn the ends in. I don't quite know how to block properly, and I don't think I did this particularly well because it's so thick. I pinned it to the blocking mats, draped that over the back of the settee and onto the radiator, and I think it's pulled a bit with the weight of it. And I thought I might have done the sleeves incorrectly because the buttons, I would have assumed the buttons would need to go on the side, but I have got a picture here of Andi's cardigan and they do seem to be underneath. I don't know if I'll be able to show you properly because of the reflection, but they do seem to be there, which does seem a bit strange. I'm checking my notes because I always forget things. It was a very easy knit and it took me quite a long time to knit it, but it was a quick knit. That sounds a bit of a contradiction, but it was because I put it down quite often to do other things. But if I had just knitted solely on this, it would have knitted up quite quickly. I found the buttons in my stash and I didn't quite have enough of the brown ones, so I've put green and brown. I have filmed a little clip of me wearing the cardigan, so I shall put that in here. It is quite short, so I've put it with a dress. I'm going to have to just wear it with fit and flare dresses, which is what it's designed for, I think. So anyway, that's my first finished object, and so my second finished object has a little bit of a story behind it. If you remember in a previous episode, I knit the flax light here for grandson number 2 who hasn't been born yet, and I used Dye Ninja yarn in navy. It's a lovely little knit, and Harry said he would like the jumper. Harry said he would like a jumper the same, but he would like a brighter blue. One lunchtime I was in town and I popped into the local Shaw's, which is a drapery shop, and they sell yarn, but it's quite cheap yarn, a lot of acrylic and wool acrylic mixes. But as that jumper's 4-ply, I didn't think I would find the type of blue that he'd like in there, as I thought it would be all the baby pastel pinks and pastel blues. But I found this huge cone of 4-ply blue. It doesn't really have, oh, it's a shade 617, but it doesn't say have a proper colour. £6.50 for 400 gram, for 500 grams of 4-ply. So this is huge. I'm going to have way too much yarn to just knit Harry a jumper. So I showed this to Harry to ask him if he liked the colour, which he did. And I said, as I have got so much yarn, I could knit him something else as well. And he could have some socks or a hat, gloves, whatever he wanted. And he said, Gaga, you didn't say a scarf. And I said, well, no, I could knit you a scarf if you like. And he said, well, I haven't got a scarf. So I said, well, we'll knit you a scarf then. And I said, would you like some tassels on the end of your scarf? And he said, no, thank you, I'd like foxes. So I said, but foxes aren't blue, Harry. And he said, I know. So I had to come home and look through Ravelry and find a nice pattern for a child's scarf with foxes on, which I did. And here it is. I have to say, this is the cutest thing I have ever made. It is so lovely, and you thread, I'll take it off here. So obviously you make it like this, and you thread the head through the tail, like so, and then the child's neck is in there and you've got a little scarf, a bit like a stole. And I like it because it's not too long, because I don't think it's very safe to have very long scarves on children, and Harry loves it, so that was great. So the pattern I used was, it was a pattern from Satu, Dolk and Ossi Lane, and it was a bit weird because although it was on Ravelry, it said it was no longer available, but lots of people had done very detailed project notes on their page, and I followed Mandolin 1987, her notes, which were very detailed and were just brilliant. So I made him a little scarf, and I used just yarn that I had in stash. I think it's Stylecraft, it's probably Stylecraft DK or something similar, and yes, so he's very happy with that, and now I've shown you he can have it, because I said he couldn't have it until I'd done the podcast. So I've made that before I've made him the jumper that I bought the original yarn for. And my final finished object, I've lost it, I'm going to have to go and find it. It jumped off, is my little sheep for my nativity scene. I asked Harry what he wanted me to make next, because we've got Mary already, and he said a sheep. So we now have little wonky sheep to go in our nativity. So it's coming along. I've got a little while yet, so that's another one under the belt. Right, works in progress. I am working on the Branches and Buds Pullover by Carrie, Bostick, Hoge, and I'm using the Honorwood yarn that I bought when we were on holiday in the caravan. We had that long trek to find their farm. I absolutely love this project. I did the gauge swatches because I am being good, and I'm doing those now, and it was just as well because I had to go down 2 needle sizes. The pattern calls for 3.75mm for the main body, and I had to go down to 3.25, which meant I had to then, the smaller needles had to be a 3mm, and I had to order those and wait. So that was a bit impatient for that, but while I was waiting for the needles for this, I knitted the fox, so it wasn't so bad. And I'm using the Knit Pro Symphonies because these are my favourite needles, and I never tend to tell you what needles I'm using. And I'm loving the colour work on this project. It's really simple. It's only 2 colours, as you can see, and I am holding the yarn in 2 hands. The main colour in my right hand because I'm right-handed, and the contrast in my left. And I learnt how to do this when I knitted the barbel hat for Josh, and I followed a tutorial on the Fruity Knitting podcast in order how to do that. Before I used to hold them both in the same hand and sort of wrap them, and I used to get quite tight, but I find if you use the yarn in both hands, your gauge isn't, well, my gauge isn't tight, and it's very neat on the back as well. It's quite blurred on the back, the contrast you can't see, but I think there's enough of a contrast on the front. So I've got 2 rows left to do of the colour work, and then I'm just straight into the fawn colour. So I'm looking forward to that because I think it will fly along once I've finished the colour work. But I knit on it every night and it's very enjoyable, but you don't feel like you're getting very far. But I think that's just because I'm not used to knitting in the round. But I'm really enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to being able to wear it. The only other project I've got, well, I have other projects. I've got Josh's socks that I haven't looked at this week, and I'm going to, well, I haven't crocheted any more on that baby blanket because I want to unpick it. But I haven't crocheted on it or unpicked it, I've just left it. So the only other project in my basket that I'm working on this week is another project for Harry. He stayed over one night last week, and when he stays in my craft room. I've got a camp bed that I put up for him, and it's nice and cosy, and I have put pictures of the bed all set up on Instagram. And he loves staying in my craft room because he loves little tins and drawers, and he's always, what's in that tin, Gaga? And I'll say, I'll have a look, and he might open it and there's buttons, and he always asks, can I play with them? And of course you can, and we've got beads and all sorts. It's a child's dream, a craft room, isn't it, with lots of different things for them to play with. So anyway, he was in my craft room, and he has been asking me to make him things that he can play with rather than wear, and I didn't really think I had anything that I could do for him. And then I remembered this book that I was given for my birthday, Crochet a Farm by Kreiner, and we went through the whole book and I showed him all the projects. And at the end I said, well, what would you like me to crochet then, Harry? And then obviously he said, everything please. So not only am I knitting a nativity scene, now I have to crochet a farm. But he settled on my first project, which is going to be the donkey, mainly because he wanted me to start it straight away, so I had to have the yarn in my stash. So there's the donkey. Now I think you're supposed to do them in DK weight. I think they are in DK, I must say at the beginning. I should have checked this first, shouldn't I? The projects. Anyway, I think they're in DK, it doesn't say, but I'm doing mine in Aran because this yarn is actually the leftovers from the barbel hat that I mentioned earlier on, and it had perfect colours for a donkey. So this is the body of the donkey, and we've got the cream for his nose, and now I've just done his head, and I've got to do the decreases, and then we stuff it, and that's his head done. But I wanted to show you a little trick a friend in work told me about how to remember where you are in the round. So you just have a contrast piece of yarn, and at the beginning of your row you pull the yarn forward, and then when you've crocheted all the way round, you know that's the start of your next round. I find that's easier than a progress keeper or a stitch marker, because you just flip it over each time, and it's quite easy and it's quite effective. Because I do have trouble with my not stitch count, chain count. I don't know, it goes all wrong, so I'm trying very hard to keep my stitch count correct. And when I was doing this, I thought I could have made little people for my nativity just out of a donkey's snout. But it's too late now because I've started knitting it anyway. So this yarn is Rowan. I'm not sure if it's the Rowan, I think it might be the Rowan Tweed, which is an Aran weight. I did try and look up my past projects. I've got the Barbel Hat on Ravelry, but it was one of the first ones that projects that I put up, and I didn't put the needles or the yarn in, so I'm not quite sure. It looks tweedy, so it was the Rowan Tweed. I know it's got hemp in it, I remember that, but other than that I'm not sure what I used, and I haven't kept any of the ball bands. I've probably written it down somewhere what I've used, so if you are really desperate to know, just message me or leave a comment and I shall try my best to find out which yarn I used. So anyway, that's a little project. I forget, I'm self-taught with crochet, and if I don't do it for a while, and when I pick something up, I remember how enjoyable crochet is, because it works up so quickly where knitting takes a little longer. So that's all I've got this week. I wanted to make sure I did an episode before I had too many projects on the go, because I find it a bit daunting if I leave it too long. And we haven't got Walkies with Charlie again this week. She's getting better, but we haven't been anywhere with her that's new to you. So instead, on Saturday, I went to Malvern, the Malvern Three Counties Autumn Show with a friend, and I'm going to put a little bit of footage, but mostly photos in here of that. I did try to vlog a little bit when I was there, but I find it really difficult and people get in my way. But I've got some nice photos, and so I hope you enjoy that, and take care of yourselves, and I'm going to take care of myself and hopefully get rid of this cold completely before I speak with you again. Bye for now. He's not going to say anything now. Thank you. Morning, Charlie. Do you want some cheese? Do you want some cheese? Here you go. Wait. Do you want that cheese, Charlie? Go on then. Good girl.